Hi, this is Stephen from owner Disown, and you may recall 3 years ago Razer launched an exciting tablet, a 10-inch tablet, a gaming tablet, which was fantastically designed. The base model I bought actually only had a 64GB hard drive, but it was very easy to upgrade. I actually upgraded with a 512GB SSD in there, and I've now got 10 gigabytes of RAM. The processor in the base model I had was an i5 3317U. It's an ultra low voltage processor that ran from 1.7 gigahertz up to turbo boost of 2.4. It was a dual core processor with hyper threading, and the GPU in it had a integrated of HD 4000 and also a dedicated NVIDIA GTX 640 MLE, which had a base clock of 500 megahertz, and it was probably ahead of its time. Fantastic it was. It had some cooling vents here at the top, which meant that if it was held in in your lap or down on the table like this, you didn't block the cooling vents. It was fantastic. One was an intake, another one outtake, and that was a very good design. Also, it had some accessories. This was a dock in which you held it on, and it worked like an Xbox controller, and a spare battery, which is a 2,800 milliamp hour battery, which slots into the dock like so. Goes in like that, and this would then slot into that way around, and you got that, and then you've got an excellent controller inside the dock there. So there were other accessories, which unfortunately Razer are very slow bringing the accessories out, and there was a docking station you could have, and also a keyboard. The keyboard took ages to come out, and it was in short supply, and I'm afraid Razer didn't support it very well with the accessories. Perhaps they thought it wasn't selling particularly good, but I think it's a fantastic device. And it's glowing the green Razer emblem there on the back. So, how good does this perform 3 years on? Can it still play, up-to-date games? So I pitted it against Tomb Raider, Overwatch, Battlefield 1, and Star Wars Battlefront. So let's take a look and see how it gets on. So I ran my benchmarks at stock settings, but I also overclocked the GPU by 135 megahertz on the core clock, which is about 27%, and the memory clock increasing it by 123 megahertz, which is not bad for such a small system. So the settings used on Tomb Raider were low across the board, resolution 800 by 600. So Tomb Raider is playable, 26 frames per second at stock settings. Overclock it, even creeps up to 30. I think that's good. So the settings in Battlefield 1 at resolution 1366 by 768, everything on low. So Battlefield 1 is also playable at stock, averaging at 36 frames a second, and overclocking it, it went up to 38. The minimum was about 28 across the board, but overclocking it saw a maximum of 59, so I think that is fantastic. Okay, Star Wars Battlefront, 1366 by 768 resolution, everything set to low settings. Star Wars Battlefront was also playable, averaging at stock settings at 33 frames a second, overclocking it, upping it to 37, and the minimum about 23-24 frames a second. So I think that is a fantastic performance. So finally on to Overwatch, 1280 by 720p, medium settings.
This will protect us. Damn it. Watch your back.
So Overwatch is an extremely popular game, and it's good to know that you can get at medium settings 50 frames per second here. And overclocking it, saw a great jump in the minimum frames per second up to 33. I like it. So to conclude, the Razer Edge still holds its own, 3 years later with the most up-to-date games, both at the default clock and also overclocking it by around about 25%. It can play definitely low to medium settings still, and I think there's probably still a few years of life left in this baby. So if you've got a laptop with a 640M in it, it's still going to be good, I think, for these games. Overclocking this does bring it up to the performance of a 640M. So fantastic. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you feel so inclined. Thank you. See you next time. I'm actually going to be putting this Razer Edge up on eBay to help fund other laptop projects for me to review. So if you're interested, just send me a message. Thanks.